Marco Reus is playing his final match as a Borussia Dortmund player this Saturday. And it's not just any match, it's the UEFA Champions League final. That's why a lot of football fans are hoping he'll win the trophy, because it would be the perfect way for him to leave the club. But while I was scrolling through comments on a social media post about this, one comment caught my eye. Someone said that many people have never watched Reus play a full 90-minute match and don't really know anything about him. They just follow the crowd. Honestly, I don't remember where I read it because I read comments everywhere, but I find that hard to believe. He's a great player, and even if you're not a Dortmund or Bundesliga fan, you've probably watched one of his Champions League matches. But this got me thinking about making a video to highlight his career and share my opinion on whether he's really that loyal or people are just exaggerating. Because the man was born in Dortmund City and grew up as a fan of the biggest club in his hometown. Eventually, he got to play for them and stay close to his family and friends while earning millions. What else could he ask for? I mean, when he was young, he joined PTSV Dortmund Academy, where his dad was a coach. It's just an amateur club, but only 2 years later, Borussia Dortmund Academy showed interest in him. So, without hesitation, he moved to play for his dream club. He developed and moved up through the youth teams in the academy for a decade, from 1995 to 2005. But over the years, he started to feel like an unwanted player. His playing minutes kept dropping, and eventually, the club made it clear he wasn't in their plans because he was too skinny. Can you believe that? I've got to salute him for not giving up. Being rejected like that could destroy you, but Reus didn't let it. Instead, he looked for a new team where he could play more and prove everyone wrong. That's what he did by joining All In, even though they were in the second tier. In his first 2 seasons, Reus played for the under-17 and under-19 teams because he was still young. But the 2008-2009 season was his big step up. He got promoted to the first team and had a great season, catching the eye of several Bundesliga clubs. They saw what he could do and wanted to sign him. So he chose Borussia Mönchengladbach, and that turned out to be a great move. Because right from the start, he made his mark, showing everyone how talented he was. And over 3 seasons, he scored 41 goals, assisted 28, and played a big role in securing a Champions League spot for the team in 2012. That's why his performance earned him the German Footballer of the Year award. At that time, even though Borussia Dortmund were the best team in Germany and full of stars, led by the ambitious young coach Jurgen Klopp, they couldn't ignore him. They had to buy him back, paying more than 17 million euros. Despite the painful way he had left, Reus accepted the offer. But he has a problem. He was still only 23, and the dressing room was full of top players who had already won back-to-back Bundesliga titles and other trophies. I mean, they had stars like Mario Götze, Lewandowski, Gundogan, Mats Hummels, and the list goes on. If I had to name every good player they had, I'd have to name the whole team, and I'm not gonna do that. What I'm trying to say is, even though Reus had developed a lot, it would be tough to find a place in that team. But it was the opposite. He was a starter from day one. And in his first season back, he helped the team reach the Champions League final after a long journey of beating some of the biggest teams in Europe like Real Madrid, Ajax, and Man City in the group stages, and they humiliated Real Madrid again in the semi-finals. Unfortunately, they lost the final to Bayern Munich due to a late goal from Robben in the 89th minute, ending the game 2-1. The only goal scored by Dortmund was a penalty by Gundogan, which Reus managed to earn. That was his first time being so close to winning something big, but he couldn't pull it off in the last moments. And that season wasn't just painful because of that loss, but also because his best teammate Götze announced he was leaving the club for their rival Bayern Munich. Also, this announcement came right before the Champions League final, and a lot of people say that it was a big distraction and one of the reasons they lost the final, as he was the best player on the team. The next season was rough too. They had to face Real Madrid again in the quarterfinals, and despite losing 3-0 at the Bernabeu, Reus put on an amazing performance in the home game, scoring 2 goals and almost leading Dortmund to a comeback. But Real Madrid held on, and Dortmund couldn't get that 3rd goal, so they were knocked out of the competition. At that time, Reus was in his prime, completely unstoppable, so his place in the national team for the 2014 World Cup was guaranteed, and he got called up. But, as always, he was unlucky and got injured just days before the competition started, during their final warm-up match against Armenia. And you know what happened next? Germany became world champions in Brazil, and his best ex-teammate scored the winning goal in the final and held up Reus's jersey during the celebration because he deserved to be there. Unfortunately, it wasn't the first or last time he missed his chance to be with the national team in big competitions, as 2 years later, he missed Euro 2016 due to a groin injury. And when he finally made his first World Cup appearance in 2018, he played well in all the matches he appeared in, but Germany got knocked out in the group stage. Then for Euro 2020, which was played in 2021, he announced he wouldn't participate because he needed to rest and recover. I mean, he knows his body, so he decided not to risk it and avoid a serious injury. And the last World Cup was maybe his final chance to play, but he couldn't participate again due to an ankle injury. As you can see, injuries really kept Reus from reaching his full potential, and that's one big reason he never left Dortmund. People always say he should have left years ago, but they don't know how many injuries he had. I mean, to list all his injuries, you'd need 5 pages. And if we break down how much time he missed, it was months at a time. And if you add up all those days, do you know how many it would be? It's 1,322 days missing, which means he should take 4 years out of his career. So, do you think any club other than his hometown club would be patient enough with him, giving him all the time to recover, and every time he comes back, he finds a place in the team? I have a lot on my mind that I want to get off my chest, but I'm not sure how to say it best, because I see a lot of people on social media creating stories like he sacrificed himself and his career for Dortmund. But when you see how many injuries he got, you realize if he had left, he'd regret it a lot. But now, it's a win-win for both sides. He became a legend for his hometown team and will be remembered forever. And he'll likely come back to coach or work in administration. I admit it, he stayed 100% loyal to his club, but if he had left, he would definitely regret it. Because after all those injuries, he would have found himself on the bench and eventually moved to a smaller club when his contract expired. Plus, when people say he stayed loyal, they make it sound like Dortmund is a small club, which it's not. It's the second biggest club in Germany, having won many titles and being one of the biggest in Europe, as they've already won the Champions League, reached the final twice, and might win it again this week. And they're always present in the competition. They're not a giant club, but they're not small either. He even said himself when he came back to Dortmund, "I've made the decision to take the next step forward in the coming season. I'd like to play for a club who can challenge for the league title and guarantee me Champions League football." Plus, at the beginning of his career, Bayern Munich was interested in him, but since he's from Dortmund and Bayern is their rival, he probably grew up hating them. So he made it clear from day one by saying, "Bayern will never have me, money isn't everything." So, let's take Bayern out of the picture forever after he said that. So he stayed at Dortmund when he was in his prime with some of the best teammates, hoping he'd achieve something big with his dream club. I mean, he refused to leave until he'll achieve something big like the Bundesliga or the Champions League. I mean, if he didn't do it, who would? But just 1 or 2 years later, the injuries started, and of course, the clubs interested in him decreased year after year. So after his prime period was over, he might never have received an offer he liked. I'm not talking about money since he wasn't interested in that. I mean a place that felt like home. So it's possible that when he had the chance to leave, he didn't do it, and after that, it was too late. You shouldn't believe everything you hear in the media. All these clubs they say were interested in him, maybe half of it wasn't true. For example, Maradona, when he left Barcelona for Napoli, was the best in the world. So, over the years, people kept saying why he didn't go to a better club, but Maradona replied by simply saying Napoli was the only club that was interested in him. He also said that he liked the Naples streets because they reminded him of his hometown. What I'm trying to say is you'll never know exactly why a certain player took any decision or stayed at any club. For example, every year, people were saying De Gea should leave Man United for a club with a better environment. And now, who would have thought that when he finally left, he wouldn't find a club for a year? So if Reus had left, he would have regretted it a lot because of his injuries. And we don't need to look far. His friend Götze, from the day he left, his career fell apart. Yes, he scored in the World Cup final and had some good stats with Bayern, but after just 3 seasons, he had to move back to Dortmund, and now he's kind of a nobody. Yes, he got sick later, but anyone who watched him before knows that he had a lot of potential. He even said himself that he regretted leaving Dortmund. And let's stay at the same club. We also have Sancho, who wasted 2 years of his career at Man United, and when he came back, he was a different player. You have Coutinho, who wishes he never left. As Klopp said to him when he asked to leave, "Stay here and they will end up building a statue in your honor. Go somewhere else, to Barcelona, to Bayern Munich, to Real Madrid, and you will be just another player." Or take Griezmann, who's so similar to Reus because they play the same positions and don't play for a giant club. It was the worst decision when he moved to Barcelona. I mean, he's one of the best in history, even if a lot of people don't appreciate him, but he had no place at Barcelona. And even if he had succeeded, so what? He'd just be another player, but at Atletico, he's a legend. And there are dozens of players who wish they didn't leave. So what I'm trying to say with all of this is that Reus definitely stayed loyal to Dortmund. He probably could have left and won titles and money, but I don't like when I see people put him in some montage with sad music in the background and feel sorry for him. People should think and feel the opposite. He did all of this for himself because he felt happy there, staying in his hometown with his family, earning millions of euros. He got to play every time he wasn't injured, as he played 428 games, scoring 170 goals, giving 131 assists, and he won many titles. And of course, he won every Dortmund resident's heart. Every time he walks down the street, he'll receive love. Plus, every football fan loves him, but if he had left, he'd just be another player, and with his injuries, he'd have ended up on the bench. People also shouldn't forget that he's German. A lot of them don't think like the rest of the world. I mean, Toni Kroos announced his retirement even though he's on top and one of the 3 players who might win the Ballon d'Or. And since we're talking about Kroos, I'm sure you remember what he said about Hazard. And here I mean when he said, "Pity is out of place in football. I don't think Eden has a bad life." You can feel sorry for people who have a much worse life than him. It's not about money. I don't feel sorry for anyone in football, so you should never feel sorry for Reus, not even for the money. As I'm making this video, he's linked with many MLS clubs where he'll earn more than he could have in his entire career at any big club in Europe.